kind of ridiculous to me to feel like somebody else feel like them have the right to tell me like what to do with my body.
Yeah.
That's insane. But I'm just realizing now, because I've grown up in the era where it
was there. So
yeah.
you're just like, exactly, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, guys, we wanted to have like a different conversation today. And it's not spicy, but some people might think it's spicy. But, you know, in recent news, we've seen that Roe versus Wade was overturned. And in seeing all these things, a lot of podcasts that I listen to or people that I know in pop culture have been having discussions about dating. And so I thought, you know, does the overturn of Roe versus Wade affect how we date going forward? Did you like hear, you know, that it's rolled back and you're like, you know what, I don't care? Or is it affecting the lens with which you approach your dating life? And that's what we wanted to just discuss as friends. Dr. Bella, we know the first time I asked her that, she was like, no, it doesn't affect me at all. But let's see if she changed her mind or
no, I still feel the same way. I don't think that the court's decision to overturn Roe v. Wade has any impact on how I would personally go about dating, truth be told. I mean, basically what the Supreme Court has done is just to say that, well, it's up to the states, each individual state, to decide whether or not your right to abortion is legal or not, right? But I think one thing for me that's in just kind of going back to the historical events of how they made the decision in the first place, I think it was in the 70s, if I'm not mistaken, that you have a federal constitutional right to an abortion.
Mm-hmm.
I just feel like men in general have too much of an interest in women's wombs and their private parts and what they choose to do with that. And that's never going to change no matter which justices you have on the Supreme Court, whether or not somebody chooses to challenge this again. And that overturn is then overturned. You know what I mean? I've always looked at my body as my body, my choice as my choice. And I think the only thing that this does is kind of put more at the forefront of my mind is that just depending on what state you live in, to kind of know what your options are and what your choices will be in the event that you find yourself with child. But just based on, you know, for women, I think, and particularly for the partners that you choose and also trying to be on the same page with them, is to be aware of what your state laws are, because it varies.
I mean, I understanding all of that, and maybe the reason that why I had said initially that it does affect the lens through which I view dating is not necessarily thinking about how, you know, at the state level, what your rights are. I guess it brought up for me a conversation about your values and beliefs and putting that at the forefront of the conversation when you're dating. Because typically, I would say when you hear a lot of people talk about, like when you just start dating somebody, there are certain topics where they tell you, do not bring that up. And one of that is your politics, your religion, you know, those very controversial conversations. And I think that the attitude that I've seen across the internet of these men towards women's bodies brought to the forefront for me wanting to be able to know if I'm dating somebody, I want to understand if you are pro my choice or not, because I don't want to start to like someone and then find out that they're just, you know, an ass. I even saw like across social media, there were immature men who were like, your body, my choice. And I'm just like, if somebody would really look me in the face and say that as a joke, that it's my body, their choice, that's not somebody I want to date. So while I would never have had that conversation at the onset of dating somebody because it's considered a controversial topic, now I guess I'm kind of like, how do I bring that up without it seeming abrupt? Because I want to know if your attitude is that it's my body, your choice, so that I can cancel you right there and then. You could be as pretty as money and nice as, I cancel you.
That's where I would start the conversation. It's just like the family. Where are you on that and having kids? And from that, then you can start to kind of tease out, well, you know, how do you feel about this and the third? And how do you feel about me making decisions about my own body? body. Granted, how you feel about it has no effect on what me I do, but it's about, do we then continue this conversation or just call it judge? Because we are definitely on two different pages.
I would counsel you. I'm sorry to say.
It just seems to be this obsession with, right? Like what women do with their bodies and, wanting to control that and wanting to control how they think and their decision making. And seems like it goes back to the dawn of time. And it makes me curious as to why have this agenda to begin with. Again, trying to familiarize myself with just the historical events that surrounded the decision to begin with. Wild, B. If you ever have an opportunity to read or listen to the audio version of this book called The Family Roe.
Okay.
Absolutely crazy.
I have not. Okay. Yeah. I'll have to check that out. Guys, you
highly
have to check
recommend.
It out also.
Highly recommend. But I think won't change your opinion overall about like where you stand and, your body, your choice, but it'll just give you a different lens into like how the decision came about in the first place, how it ended up in the Supreme Court in the first place, and just how fragile it was to begin with. Because the decision to make it your constitutional right, yes or no, seems to rest in the fact on which justices are on the Supreme Court.
Yes.
So
it seems
today,
that way to me also.
Gone tomorrow.
Before this came to Roe versus Wade being rolled back, I never would have even thought to have that sort of conversation in a dating scenario. Just never. And I think that's where a light bulb went off for me, where I was just like, never thought about this at all. Like I never thought, what is a man's perspective on this?
Yeah.
If you eventually marry somebody and so you're in this lifelong partnership with them, what is their perspective on pro-life or pro-choice? And there are people who probably they are married or they're about to be married or they're in long-term relationships. And I'm not sure if they thought to have that conversation. And in fact, I think about people I've dated in the past and I have no idea what their perspective was on that. And if we were to have ever gotten into that situation, what they would have said or how how they would have approached me. I don't know because we never talked about it.
That's a really great point. In my mind, and I think this is what sort of like went off for me, is like how much I've taken for granted that I have the ability to choose, and just I'm learning now just how fragile that really is living in the US. Kind of ridiculous to me to feel like somebody else feel like them have the right to tell me like what to do with my body.
Yeah.
That's insane. But I'm just realizing now because I've grown up in the era where it was
there. So you're just like, exactly. It's kind of like a right and privilege that we had growing up that we just took for granted. And now to think that, I have a little cousin who's 11 years old and she has lost that right at this moment in time. It is for sure mind-boggling.
Nonsense. I can't believe that this is 2025 and
this is where we are.
Yeah. And these are the discussions that we need to be having.
Same.
In these United States of America. I'd be interested to know if any guys are listening, what your opinion is of it. I guess without getting too crazy.
When do you think it's appropriate to talk about it when you're dating?
Yeah.
Because for me, I feel like I want to know right away. I don't want to waste my time with somebody who is not going to be on the same page as me because I don't think that we will ever be aligned.
If they're not on the same page. Yeah. That's too big of a thing though. There's no way to really, I personally don't think there's any way to navigate around that. If you align on everything else, but when it comes to this one specific thing, you don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a deal breaker, which
it has to be.
If you had asked me, and truthfully, I've been asked, like, what are my dating deal breakers? And I've often struggled to list them, but I feel like I draw a line in the sand where this is concerned.
It's too big to not.
Yeah. I would never, I don't understand somebody who would want to take away my right And look,
where I
I've
stand.
never had a child, but I would say I always perceive pregnancy and don't come for me, but I always perceive pregnancy as a trauma to your body because there's just so much happening. You have like someone growing inside you. Your body's changing so constantly. Your hormones are like everything. They're women after pregnancy, their shoe size change, like just so many things that are happening to your body that for somebody to say that, no, understanding that all those things are true, you shouldn't have a say.
Yeah.
I'm confused. And a lot of times too, there are, this is a whole other topic, but the roles that women play in the household are definitely more intense when it comes on to child rearing. There are men who don't believe in being active fathers, right? They believe mommy should do everything. So not only do I have to experience this trauma to my body, but I have to be the sun and the moon to this child. If the child is sick, I'm the one to be called, and you just want to be like, I'm your provider, I'm your whatever. And I'm just like, first of all, no, you're not my provider. Like, we're in a partnership. And second of all, it shouldn't be that the onus is 100% on me to take care and nurture this child. It's just all giving negative from me.
I would say that would also be a nice topic for discussion in the dating phase. I don't know when you would bring that up, but when you talk about your family and what your viewpoints are in terms of wanting a family or whatever the case might be.
I mean, for me, that has always been something that I thought that it should be at the forefront of your conversation in dating, because it is, again, I think that's a major deal breaker for you to be in a relationship with somebody. You get to the point where you get married and you realize after your marriage begins that you have completely different perspectives on gender role. And here you are as a progressive modern woman that thinks that your marriage should be a partnership, that you're now married to a man who has very traditional views and believes that all of the nurturing in your home is on you, and he wants you to have 5 or 6 or whatever children and do all the things, and he chills.
Yeah, no.
It just
no.
Exactly.
No.
I can feel,
No.
I can feel my blood boiling already.
No.
And I'm not in the situation.
No.
I'm not in the situation, and I can already feel, I've choice words for you, sir.
It's like, when do you bring all this stuff up? I feel like it's important and to your point, you don't want to waste your time. You don't want to go plan a much date.
Yeah. And now you're like, oh,
yeah.
he's so cute and whatever. And then it's like, oh, no, we're not on the same page. It can't continue. It can't continue. We're not on the same page at all. I should have canceled you day one, and now it's not working out. It's not working out. No.
Goddamn time. I welcome, the audience to kind of chime in and
weigh in. Like, when would you want to have that discussion? I'm for having it right away. I want to know.
Date one?
I want to know. I don't know that it's date one, but like, I want to know as soon as possible, because I know that when it comes on to, I feel like very strongly about those things. And so I just feel like my attitude would be quite polarizing to somebody if I can't pretend. I just can't pretend. And so it would be that you start to show signs that we're not on the same page. And I think that the way that I'm going to express myself very directly to you about it. For me, the new lens that I'm looking through is just like, how do I find creative ways to broach that conversation early on? And to your point, like, making it about a discussion around family. But even that, I think, like, there are some men that they don't want to talk about that right away. and they're like, I'm sure that there are dating gurus that would tell you very early on in the relationship not to have discussion about family and all of that, because it's gonna scare the guy. And so definitely I'm just like, how do you have that conversation?
I don't know if you need to
know.
be, I don't know if you need to be creative. I not necessarily on date one.
True. But the thing is that because this is such a controversial discussion, you don't want to seem like you're being terse or just like abrupt with someone when you just met them, right? Like, I think you need to establish some sort of rapport, I guess, before you get into it. But at the same time, internally, I'm like this. I want to know.
Yeah.
I want to know. know.
But in the interest of not wasting people's time either. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So like,
it's like a balance though. It's a
that
balance.
would be, my approach would be, as I've said like multiple times already, it's just figuring out the family issue, where you stand on that, and then kind of working my way in from there.
Guys in the comments, when do you think is an appropriate time to have that conversation? Like, sound off. Let us know what you think. Or maybe you think that we're overthinking this because we're women and it's typically our bodies that are at the forefront of these discussions. Like, I'm very curious to understand from the male perspective, like, what are you thinking?
Enlighten us on where your thought processes are on when it comes to issues like that, and what do you deem a reasonable time
frame? Yeah. The other thing too, I was listening to this podcast. I don't remember which one it was, but there was a discussion about like all of these types of things. And I believe there was like this guy who's a marketing guru or something. And he was saying that, you know, you take away a woman's right to choose and all of that. And he believes that going forward, men are going to be affected highly negatively, because then women will decide that they're no longer as willing to have sex with them. So ultimately men will be having even less sex than they're having now, because the woman, you know what I mean? She don't have the choice. So, and I was like, that's an interesting perspective. Yeah. I don't know I don't know. What's your hot take on that? Are you going, no, sir, I'm not, like, we're not getting down because
if
right? I'm just like, I'm not sure of the answer to that, because, you know, I don't know if it means that men will be having
there are other
sex.
ways to try to prevent a pregnancy if you definitely know that that's not what you want right now, or ever.
Right.
They're not like
they're
100% effective.
Correct. But stacked together, you know what I mean?
I mean,
like,
abstinence is for sure
100%. There's
100%
that.
effective. Yeah.
People who are on birth control, who are using condoms, and what else is there for you to do? Diaphragms and all the things, then I feel like there's so much knowledge and I guess access to methods of birth control, unless we also start rolling back access to birth control, and taking away services from Planned Parenthoods and all of that. I think if that's happening, then 100%.
If women are allowed to choose whether or not they want to bring a pregnancy to term, then a man should be allowed to decide whether or not he wants to be involved with the child when they get here.
I mean, I guess for me, I think they've never not had that choice.
Let's say care them got caught for child support, so they don't have to like physically, you know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
But like, even with child support, that's money, honey. That's not you giving of your time. That's
so I'm
not
saying,
you,
so
getting to know your kid.
And so the question was, if I don't want to have nothing, and I'm telling you I don't, and you know, I'm not, for various reasons, but I'm not in a position, I just don't want it, or I'm not in a position to do what I need to do when said child gets here. If I'm telling you I don't, and you decide to bring the pregnancy to term, I should then have the right as a man to say, oh, no, I'm nothing to do with this, and you should not be able to take me to court for child support.
My knee-jerk response is to come for you. But I have to, I'm willing to have a think about it.
Because honestly, would you say then that if you have the absolute right to choose to bring a pregnancy in to term and bring a life into this world, and you want that choice to be solely down to you and your right to do what you want with your body?
Yes.
On the flip, would the male counterpart in question then have the right for, one, the duration of your pregnancy, and two, in the child's life when the child gets here? Would then that not be his sole right to make those decisions? If it is your sole right and you alone get to decide if you're bringing the kid. I'm not saying, oh, Ray, Arne. Not saying I'm agree one way or the other. I'm just saying, like, I think it's a question worth pondering.
I'll have to gather my thoughts on it, because I'm just upset. Like, there's just several schools of thought that I have, because I just think that a lot of times the situations that result result in a child, it's not, you do the crime, so you gotta do the time, honey. You know what I'm saying?
For both, okay, then I would make the argument that for both parties involved. So say you do the crime, right? You do the time. You do the crime, and when you're not doing a thing and sex is good and whatever, ain't nobody complaining. But boom, you get pregnant. You don't want it now. It's like, yeah, no, this, whenever really too deep on this, would you not hold yourself accountable to that, to your own point? You do the crime, you do the time. You don't want it, but
as much as I am a pro-choice chica,
yeah,
I am not for abusing the privilege of abortion. Because I do think that there are women who are promiscuous who, look, it's just a regular thing for them. But I do believe that they are, in anything, there's an extreme for every situation, right? And they're extreme, but I think they represent a small percentage of women.
Yeah, because I hear your point. I see where you're going, but I think it did give me pause when the question was posed. Because if it's your absolute soul right, you alone can decide, say, oh, and maybe you did not have these conversations that we talked about up front about where you stand with certain things, or maybe you did, and you find yourself in a predicament, and now you're not really seeing eye to eye on where to take this pregnancy. And if you alone get to decide, because ultimately you're a choice, right? The guy can say, I don't want it. And you decide, well, I do. And you want to bring the pregnancy to term. And it is your sole right to make the decision on what you do with your body, then are you giving the guys the sole right to make the decision on whether or not they show up and how they show up? And if they decide not to show up, don't drag them to court for child support. I think we should leave it there.
Yes. Yes. The only thing I will say, the only thing I would say, is that's a little too spicy for me right now.
I think we can leave it there. People can sound off and say what they feel about that, how they feel about that, and maybe we pick this discussion up in another episode.
Yeah, because I have many little theories are going around in my mind, and
Okay. Woo! Thanks everyone for staying with us and listening, and please join in the conversation. Let us know what you think. Until next time.